Ni sambula vinaka na marama kina turanga vakina vekem nikede na sema tuka maina porokoramo. Oyawo Shaneel Lal. I am Shaneel Lal. On the 22nd of January 2000, my doctor delivered a gay mistake. I was that gay mistake, but I'm a huge fan of Lady Gaga, so I like to think of my birth as a remake of A Star Is Born. When I woke up this morning, I didn't look in the mirror and say, oops, I'm trans, better fix that. But the years of compulsory heterosexuality has caused me so much confusion, and while we live in a system of institutionalized heteronormativity, my human rights are still not a human reality. 35 years ago, homosexuality was a crime. 8 years ago, same-sex marriage was not a reality. And to this day, it is completely legal to torture queer people to change their gender or their sexuality in the name of conversion therapy. Conversion therapy isn't therapy at all, it is junk science. In the summer of 2017, I volunteered at the Middlemore Hospital when a church leader walked up to me and offered to pray my gay away. So I said, good luck. No, I refused to pray, so he looked at me and he said, it's hot, but do you know what's hotter? Hell. At 17, this idea of going to hell was really scary to me, but at 21, going to hell makes perfect sense with my fantasy. I mean, if all the queer people are going to hell, that's where I want to be. It's going to be a party. But I couldn't believe that conversion therapy was still legal in New Zealand. To the cisgendered heterosexual people in this room, how many times have you been asked, what caused your heterosexuality? Oh, have you considered conversion therapy to overcome your heterosexual desires? Never. So non-queer people refuse to believe that conversion therapy still happens in Aotearoa, but the Counting Ourselves report found that 17% of trans and non-binary people are stopped by medical professionals from being trans and non-binary. Now, the medical profession is where I expect conversion therapy to happen the least. So if the numbers look like that in the medical profession, you can only imagine what they look like in religious groups. In the past, people have used electroconvulsive therapy to treat queerness. Joan Bellingham grew up wanting to be a nurse, but when the word got out that she was a lesbian, she was taken to the Princess Margaret Hospital not as a nurse, but as a patient. In her time, she was falsely diagnosed with a personality disorder and given 200 electric shocks. She says that the headaches made her want to die, and the electric shocks felt like razor blades through her body. She's 70 years old now, still a lesbian, but she says she ended up hating herself. People are who they are. Conversion therapy is just a bigoted way of bottling up parts of people that society refuses to accept. I mean, conversion therapy makes a gay person straight like yelling talofa makes Judith Collins Samoan. And if anyone's confused, it don't do that. Many have turned to psychoanalysis. A TVNZ undercover investigation found that medical professionals, psychologists, were telling their clients that their sexuality could absolutely be changed. One medical professional gave her client a card with quotes on them, and by reading the quotes, the card was meant to rewire his brain from homosexual to heterosexual. I can confirm it failed. Others have turned to evasion therapy. Now, this includes snapping yourself with a rubber band, having an extremely cold shower, or inflicting pain on yourself every time you think or feel queerly. The idea is that your queer feelings and thoughts become evasive, so accepting that you're queer is a punishment in itself. But the most significant practitioners of conversion therapy are religious extremists. I'm reminded of the story of Chris, who was only 16 when his church introduced him to conversion therapy. He says he prayed to God to heal him or kill him. To heal him or kill him. There's a fine line between religious freedom and religious bigotry. Conversion therapy is religious bigotry. Religious extremists have been able to weaponize the relationship that queer people have with God and convince us into thinking that God will hate us if we don't change. God doesn't care if you're gay or trans. Being a decent human being will suffice. As for these religious extremists, they have pushed queer people into a life of pain and misery and death, and God will never forgive them for it. The thing with homophobic people is that they won't just come out and say, I am homophobic. So they are forced to look for ridiculous answers like, in the same book that says, Snakes Can Talk says homosexuality is a sin. Haha, you got me. Or, traditionally, marriage was between a man and a woman. Well, traditionally, voting was between white men and the government. Things have changed, and so should we. My friend Josiah was young when he started having feelings for other men. But he struggled with his sexuality because he grew up in a religious environment that told him it was not okay to be gay. So when he approached his church leaders, they put him into conversion therapy, and his conversion therapy was naming your sin, going to counseling, and having your online life monitored. But the thing with my friend was that he did want to change. He wanted to lead a heterosexual life. Queer people are desperate for change when they seek out for help. It's because queer people go through their entire life being ridiculed and shamed and bullied for being queer. We're told that we are broken, that we will have no future, that our family and friends will leave us. So it does not surprise me when queer people give in to that bullying and shame and seek change. Conversion therapy is never a choice for us because the other option is saying goodbye to everything we've ever known and loved. There's no evidence that conversion therapy works, but there's an abundance of evidence that conversion therapy kills. Young queer people are 5 times more likely to commit suicide than young non-queer people in Aotearoa. Yesterday, the government, well, on Friday, not yesterday, the government put forward the bill that will end conversion therapy in Aotearoa. I welcome the bill, but it will require some serious changes. Banning conversion therapy, and I do not have the time to get into meaningful criticism of the law, so if you want to talk to me, I am doing an expert roundtable later. Banning conversion therapy is not the same as ending conversion therapy. A token criminal ban on conversion therapy will not end the practice. A criminal ban requires the survivor or the victim of conversion therapy to call the police or go to the Human Rights Commission. Now tell me, how many young people who are financially dependent on their parents will call the police or go to the Human Rights Commission? And if they do, how are we going to respond to these children? I truly hope that our government is not thinking of state care as a viable option. It's naive to hope that accountability will solve this deep-rooted issue of anti-queerness. We must educate people so conversion therapy just doesn't happen. But the government did not do any work to end conversion therapy for the last 4 years, so they've put a flawed law in front of us. And I'm told that you can have a say at Select Committee. But as a survivor and an activist, I feel deeply hurt and disregarded by these comments. Right-wing conservative groups who are well-resourced and mobilized and oppose a ban will dominate Select Committee. It is also not mentally taxing for them to show up to the Select Committee and debate our lives as if we're hypothetical situations. These groups who oppose a ban on conversion therapy will have the most significant influence just because they can. Queer people, especially queer people of color, won't have a significant presence at the Select Committee. Our community is not mobilized and not well-resourced to be able to do this. But that is not the only reason. Conversion therapy is traumatizing. Reliving that experience is traumatizing. Select Committee is where politicians rip into vulnerable people and question them. That is not the place to allow survivors and victims of conversion therapy to have a say. My message to Aotearoa is that Before you debate conversion therapy, consider the harm and trauma that survivors and victims of conversion therapy still live with. What may be a hypothetical debate for you is a life terrifying experience of queer people. We are still healing, so don't open our wounds just for pointless debate. Select Committee is around the corner, so I implore you to support in favor of ending conversion therapy. Conversion therapy is not about praying the gay away or fixing the trans. It's about psychologically and physically torturing the most vulnerable people to death. If you loved my talk, I'm Shaneel Lal. If you hated it, talofa, I'm Judith Collins.